What's up, guys? Justin here for Team Shenanigans, and today I'll be bringing you guys our Prism Dragon, Star Dragon World deck profile. So, there's a lot of options, a lot of different directions you can go with this deck right now. Because after their first set of support, it was like, okay, well, we pretty much know we're going to use Quintessence Athora, maybe Trial Deck Athora, and Shelter. And just go with the spells we have, the weapons we have, the crappy size zeros we had, and just impact them. And since then, they've gotten 2 more sets of support, and there's several different size zeros, several different combos you can run. There's like more of a burn heavy defensive deck. But anyway, this is our take on the build. It's completely to our preference, and there's still like one little change we'd like to make. We'd like to find a second copy of this and take this extra item out for it, and probably just sideboard this item if it's even needed. It's really not needed that much. The only card you really care about is your center, and this item helps with that. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the deck profile. Of course, the buddy we run is Athora SD because to us it is a monster that you will always want to call out when you can. You could easily buddy Quintessence Athora or even Crystal Glass Athora, but we just choose to go with the size 0 because you're always going to want to call this guy out, and different situations call for different size 3s. So, make of that what you will. So, starting out with the size 3s, run 4 copies of Quintessence Athora. Pay 3 gauge, top 2 cards of the deck into its soul. Double attack and soul guard. It's a 7/7, so with your item it becomes a 9/9. Very nice. The 2 soul it gets off the top of the deck is really great, which makes it the best Athora just by itself. That on top of solid normal Athora stats and double attack. And the effect of it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and you can't be dealt damage. So no burn damage, no penetrate unless it would be leaving the field. Unless it leaves the field with no soul and they destroy it, then you would take penetrate. But other than that, as long as it stays on the field, you can't be dealt any effect damage. So 4 copies of that. Then 4 copies of Athora of Glass, Avatar of Glass, Crystal Athora. This one is less offensive and more of a defensive card. You trade off double attack for counterattack and 3 crit instead of just 2. So it's a 7/3/7. With Soul Guard and counterattack. So it does hurt you offensively that you don't have double attack with this Athora, but this is mainly for those times you really need to turtle. Its call cost is pay 3 gauge and put the top 1 card, just the top card of your deck, into its soul. So it doesn't get, again, it's less of a powerful card than Quintessence Athora because it doesn't get the top 2 cards of deck into soul. You only get 1 free soul. But it makes up for that in the fact that it does have counterattack, which is a pretty rare skill in Buddy Fight, really. Not many monsters have built-in counterattack. It still has the ability of where it cannot be destroyed. Yeah, this card on your center cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. And it also has a once per turn ability of when you cast a spell during your opponent's turn, you draw a card. So it instantly reimburses you for any of your defensive spells, so that's really nice. Next, for the last actual size 3 of the deck, we run 2 copies of Shelter. Whenever this card is destroyed, you gain 1 life, and if you are at 7 or more life, whenever this card attacks, you may destroy a monster on your opponent's field. And it has double attack, soul guard, and it is a 8/5. So it has 1k more power, but minus 2k defense when comparing it to the Athoras. But it still has double attack and 2 great abilities. It can still be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, so you have to watch out for that. But every time it's destroyed, you gain a life. So if you just turbo soul into this with like mystery settings and, well, basically just mystery settings, uh, or save it with brush upper, you keep gaining life with it. And it's really a very useful card with powering through your opponent's center or just swing at their face if they're an open center deck while popping their monsters on the side. Because since it has double attack, you'll be popping 2 monsters or the same monster twice during that turn whenever you attack. Next, we have a size 3 that isn't even treated as a size 3 on the field. Crystal Dragon Epiclear. It's a 5/2/7, so big beefy guy. But as long as you have a size 3 Prism Dragon on your field, this card is treated as a size 0. And it is basically a Raging Spirit effect, where all of its all attacks are redirected to it instantly. It's a call cost of 1 gauge, but it's well worth it because now you have a big beefy beater, and normally they'll have to link attack just to get over this. So it helps you get around penetrate and just gives you an extra beater on board just from 1 gauge, and that's really nice. And there's some different combos this card can really help with in the deck also. Next, 4 copies of the Buddy, of course. We have Athora SD. 1 gauge, 3/1/3. As long as you have an original size 3 Prism Dragon on your center, this card cannot be destroyed. So it can't be destroyed by effects, it can't be destroyed by attacks, it just can't be touched by your opponent. So it's just a size 0 that's just going to sit there and keep poking at things on the field or poking for 1 crit of damage every turn. It also has the ability to, when your Prism Dragon would leave the field, you may put this card from the field to the drop zone instead. And for the final size 0, we run 1 copy of Red Crystal Dragon Merlot. We would like to run 2 to 3 copies of this. It is a once per turn named skill, but I still feel like it's got a decent spot in the deck at 2 or 3. We just only own 1 copy right now. I don't know why. They're just hard to find. They have been since the set got released. We would easily take out 1 extra item for it and probably even take the deck up to 51 for the 3rd copy. So very good card. I highly recommend running it. It's a 2/1/1. Its effect is named Red Jewel Tears, and it is a name ability once per turn. Whenever your Prism Dragon on the field is destroyed, you gauge 1, draw 1. So if this is on your side and your opponent swings at your center, even if you save it with Soul Guard or keep it on the field with Brush Upper, this still activates charge 1, draw 1. Your opponent doesn't want that to happen and decides to attack this thing instead. Well, it's destroyed, its effect still activates. Charge 1, draw 1. So it's very good gauge ramp and helps you cycle, and could really, if they decide to just leave it on the side and don't want to mess with it, or if you have an Everclear on the other side, they swing, it's automatically redirected to Everclear. Everclear is destroyed, charge 1, draw 1. Now they have to decide, well, do I want to swing at this again and kill it? Which they pretty much have to. They have to get rid of this, or else they'll just be giving you so much advantage. Next, 4 copies of Crystal Spikes, the OG Secret Pack shoes. 0 power, 0 crit, 4k defense, so it really affects Shadow Divers. They can't just poke at you with Shadow Dive all the time because you're sitting at 4k defense. The equip cost of 1 gauge. It permanently gives +2/+2 to your Prism Dragon in the center, and your Prism Dragon in the center's effects can't be nullified. So this is your out to Oberon, this is your out to Legend Stars, this is your out to Style of Justice, and keeps your Athora from just being a vanilla through those effect nullifying skills. And the +2/+2 really helps no matter what you have in the center. It makes both your Athoras 9/2/9s, which is really hard to get over. And it even makes your Shelter a 10/7. So that's very useful. Next, we run 1 copy of an extra item because there's a lot of item popping, and items are very important in this deck. But as important as items are, like I said, we would still take this out in a heartbeat for another Merlot if we had one, if we didn't suck. But this card can arguably, some people say it's better, but it still gives you that 4k defense to help deal with Shadow Dive. And it, instead of just keeping your size 3 in the center's effect being safe from being nullified, it gives the blanket effect to the entire board, where none of your Prism Dragon's abilities can be nullified. So that's nice. And instead of giving the +2/+2 to the center, after the monster in your center is attacked, it gets +1 defense for the turn. So if you have several ways of keeping your Prism Dragon in the center alive, then every time it's attacked, it's getting +1 defense. So it can help boost it up, but I really prefer the +2 that the crystal spikes just immediately give you, instead of having to survive through attacks to get up to even that point. Next, moving on to spells. 4 copies of Mystery Setting, because this is your best gauge ramp in the deck. Just, you can put this card from hand to the soul of a Prism Dragon on the field. This card in the soul of your Prism Dragon cannot be placed in the drop zone from the soul by your opponent's card effects, so they can't Loki it, they can't do anything to get rid of it. And once per turn, whenever your Prism Dragon with this card in its soul is attacked, you put the top card of your deck into the gauge. It's once per turn, but it's not name ability once per turn, so if you have all 4 copies of this in the soul of something because you just opened Godly and continue to draw Godly and just shove them all in the soul of your Thor in the center, once your opponent attacks, you will automatically gauge 4. You gauge 1 for each copy in your soul, which is awesome. The feeling to luck out and somehow get 2 of these in the soul of Quintessence Thor at the beginning of the game is just amazing. Next, speaking of gauge ramp, we run 3 copies of Starjack Boost. Pretty simple card. It's once per turn, and as long as you're at 7 or more life, you gauge 1, draw 1. So it's just, it replaces itself in your hand while giving you an extra gauge, which is very important in this deck to help set up and just keep that gauge flow going. Because against some matchups, you won't have a hard time keeping your Thor on the field, but against stuff like Thunder Empire, if you don't open optimal, they can really power through an Thor pretty easily. And you want to make sure you have that gauge to call a second one on your next turn, while still being able to equip your shoes, call your Thor SD, and call your Everclear. So you look at that. If you want to, that's 3 gauge for a Thora, 1 gauge for your shoes, 1 gauge for SD, and 1 gauge for Everclear. That's 6 gauge you're looking at. Forgot to count for a second. That's 6 gauge. So that could really, really hurt. And then if you want to impact, that's another 2 gauge. So your shield costs 1 gauge. Your draw spell costs 2 gauge. You absolutely have to have gauge in this deck. That's why Mystery Setting is so important. Starjack Boost is so important. And the next card we're going into, Enhancement, is also important. It's basically Starjack Boost. You put the top card of your deck into your gauge, and as long as you have a size 3 Prism Dragon on your center, you draw a card, and you can only cast Enhancement once per turn. We originally did run 4 copies of Starjack Boost and 3 Enhancement, but having to fit so many other cards in the deck as new cards are coming out, something had to go down. And Starjack Boost at 4 can kind of clog. Enhancement at 4 really clogs, because if you open Enhancement and no size 3, you basically can't cast it. You can cast it and get a gauge, but you're not going to get the draw. So opening Starjack Boost and not having a size 3, you're fine. Enhancement, it can get kind of iffy. You ideally would love to open with 1 of each in your opening hand. That'd be pretty awesome. But basically, running 3 of each prevents them from clogging too bad, and you're basically running 6 copies of the same card. Going on with the theme of Gauge Excel, run 4 copies of Brush Upper. Brush Upper is a very good card because it can save any Prism Dragon on your field. And your items are a Prism Dragon. A lot of people don't really realize you can cast this card to save your item. Brush Upper says if your Prism Dragon would be destroyed, you may cast this card and it stays on the field. So it doesn't prevent Penetrate if you're saving your monster in the center and you're not on Quintessence. It doesn't stop Penetrate, but it just prevents the card from leaving the field, and if you're at 6 or more life, you gain a gauge. So it's good gauge excel. It can save any Prism Dragon on your field, including your item. So it's just a very, very solid card. And Gauge Excel is very good in this. Why Gauge Excel is very good in this is because all of the high gauge cost. Like I said before, like with your size 3s, and how all these cards cost a gauge except for Merlot. This card is also something you're going to be using gauge for, and a lot of people don't like this card. Run 2 copies of Dispersion. It's not once per turn, it just simply says if you have a size 3 Prism Dragon on the field, you may pay 2 gauge and draw 2 cards. So I know that sounds very expensive, but you really... The one thing this deck doesn't do well is keep hand advantage. You can keep field advantage pretty nicely with your size 3 on the board if you're not fighting something that's super aggressive and hitting high numbers, but you can really run out of cards fast with all your defensive spells. And that's really what they were trying to do, giving us Avatar of Glassithora, which really helps, but if you're not on that, then you're not getting reimbursed for your defensive spells with that draw. That's where Dispersion really comes in. Also, something to note, if you don't open Optimal and you don't have a size 3 to call out, let's say you only open with Everclear, then you can still call Everclear to the center. Everclear is still a size 3, and then you can still pay 2 gauge for Dispersion. And yeah, you just used a lot of gauge, but you're drawing cards. I don't necessarily recommend it, but it's something you can do if you have more gauge excel. So if you open with Starjet Boost and Enhancement, you can just call Everclear. You can Starjet Boost first to see what you get, pay gauge, call Everclear, then cast Enhancement, and then cast Dispersion if you need to. So Everclear, that's how Everclear can really help the deck flow, with it also being a size 3, and kind of helping with bad opening hands, especially if you go first. But in our first thoughts on Dispersion, we didn't like it, but once we put it in the deck, we actually really did like it, because it helps you just reimburse yourself for all those cards. And a nice one's nice. And I understand why they made it cost 2 gauge in this deck. If it cost 1 gauge, it'd be a little... I mean, this deck's already just dumb enough. It doesn't need any more help. Moving on to stuff that costs gauge, run 4 copies of Radiant Shell. Now you can take this card out for, I believe it's called Prism Canceller, the other null that Prism Dragons have. But we still prefer this card, even though it does cost a gauge. Just pay gauge, counter speed. You can only cast this if you have a size 3 Prism Dragon on the field, or just a Prism Dragon on the field. No, you can only cast this if a Prism Dragon monster in your center is being attacked. Nullify the attack and burn them for 1 damage. So, very good. Kind of helps pile on the burn damage that your shoes do. So that's nice. So you cast this, nullify the attack. They get burnt 1 for shoes if your size 3 is still in the field, and then get burnt 1 for this. So, nice card is nice. Next, run 3 copies of this new baby, this amazing card, Crystallization Phenomenon. Cast cost, pay 1 life. So, doesn't cost any gauge. How odd. A card in this deck that doesn't cost gauge. You're paying a life instead. For counter skill, first of all, draw a card. So instantly, it's like, well, great. It instantly replaces itself in my hand. You can only cast this card when a monster in your center is, when a Prism Dragon in your center is being destroyed. So, well, after a Prism Dragon in your center has been destroyed. So, got saved with Soul Guard, or you kept it on the field with Authora SD, or you cast Brush Upper to save it. Then afterwards, you can cast this card. So, effect. You choose a monster on your opponent's field, rest it, and nullify all of its abilities. So, unless, say against Thunder Empire, unless they have Fanning on the field, you just rested their bots, and now it doesn't have double or triple attack or anything for the rest of the turn. Even if they have Fanning on the field, you still just nullified its abilities, because you fulfill as much of the effect as possible. So this is your out to like the big rush decks that are just going to sit there and try to swing through a Thora several times. It's just a really great pseudo shield, kind of. You have to play it carefully, and the fact that your Prism Dragon has to be being destroyed to activate this is the only reason we don't max it out at 4 copies, but overall it's still an amazing card. And then closing out the deck, we run 4 copies of Cristiano Crystal Shoot, the amazing Secret Pack Impact. Pay 2 gauge, you may only cast this during your opponent's final phase, and if you did not take any damage that turn and have a size 3 Prism Dragon on your center. Deal 4 damage to your opponent, the damage can't be reduced, and their life can't be changed. So no burn nova, no nothing. This is your big finisher if you couldn't just aggro them out with the Thor's double attack and outlast them, and while burning them to death with your shoes and your shield. This is your big finisher if none of that stuff worked. And the fact it only costs 2 gauge really helps reimburse you for the fact that it is a very situational card. It really requires a Thora to be there. You have to have your size 3 in the center and not taking any damage. That includes penetrate. That's where Quintessence effect damage nullifying really comes in handy. So that's our deck profile, guys. Like we said, there's several different directions you can go with this deck. There's the new spell Asterism effect, which prevents you from losing that turn. We really want to try that card out, and we're probably going to test it out in the main board. We're just not sure what to take out for it. If you have any suggestions, questions, anything, feel free to comment them down below. And like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't. And stay tuned for more Buddy Fight and Card Fight Vanguard content. Until next time, this is Justin for Team Shenanigans, signing out.